Okay.
We are technically live now, and then I will get you this link. There it goes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's not your link.
For some reason, my YouTube previews have been pulling up other artists, and then I have to go back and change it. I'm not sure why it's grabbing those ones from different artists, but I will be able to fix it as soon as
It's okay.
as soon as that's over. Okay, cool. I am posted to Facebook.
No, the link is wrong for some reason. Just give me a moment. Okay.
Okay, no
I
problem.
get it now. Just a second. Hello, everybody. If you're looking at us right now live.
As we slowly
Okay, I'm ready.
make all this work. Yay! All right. I'm just going to make sure we're pulled up also on YouTube so we can say hi to people as they show up. Hi, Scott. All right, here we go. Oh, I'm going to change this. I like to move so that you're as close to my camera as possible. So it looks like I'm looking at you when I'm talking.
Yeah, it's hard for me because my screen is here and the camera is here, but we're gonna manage. And also, I cannot see the comments, so
that's all right. I will be monitoring for sure, so I will share those as they come up. So, welcome to the Social Hour. My name is Nicole York. I am a photographer, writer, and digital artist, and today I have with me Virginia Y. She is an internationally published photographer and art director who has worked with companies like Elle, Harper's Bazaar, Men's Health, and Cosmopolitan. She's also the host of the Fashion Photography podcast, where she's interviewed photographers like Jason Bell, Benjamin Von Wong, and Joel Grimes. She has amazing work. She's always so interactive with the community, and she loves to be of help and service. And so I'm really excited to have her with me today. Virginia, welcome.
Thank you so much. That was so sweet.
I just want to make sure, like, for people who, you know, aren't exposed to your work, I really let them know what kind of stuff you do. And so I'm really glad to have you here.
Thank you. It was so nice. Once we talked about it and we arranged it, I was just so happy. And I think this is something that actually I should do more often, because you know that often I'm the one interviewing other photographers. Yeah. So I was very surprised that you can say so many things, because usually on the internet there is not very much about me.
Yeah, there's not. I had to research just a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's kind of part of the fun of this, is getting to learn about all of these different creatives and find out things about them. And that's one of my favorite things, is there's interesting trends that have seemed to pop up over time after interviewing people. I found a lot of photographers start off as graphic designers. I don't know why, but a good probably 5, maybe 6 of the interviews so far, I found out that they started off in design somehow, which is really cool. So
probably because it's also very visual. Mm-hmm. And also some clients are like, they're going to an agency or to a specific person. They're like, we want you to do this and this, but can you also shoot?
Right.
So it's probably the reason.
Probably. And then some of the photographers have mentioned starting with their clients and then realizing their clients just were not working with very good quality photography and being like, I cannot allow this to continue going on. And so they go from there.
Awesome.
So Scott Abels is here with us. He is an actor here in New Mexico. Hi, Scott. And High Concept Image Branding, which is Kevin Davis out of Colorado Springs, also the owner of Level 4 Studios in Colorado Springs, is here with us as well. Hi, guys. Cool. If anybody has questions for Virginia, make sure you guys put those in the comments so we can get to them as the interview progresses.
Yes, that would be lovely. Do you want me to give you some behind the scenes of my life so that
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you. First, I wanted to know, how is everything going with the isolation and everything over there? It seems to kind of be the big narrative right now.
To be honest, we had isolation and everything, but me and George, who is the producer of the podcast, for those of you
Hmm.
that don't know, we are also a couple in life, so we wasn't really able to feel the isolation that much, simply because we
Right.
had to move houses, and it was very stressful to do it during an isolation, to be honest, because everybody's closing their home. So right now we're living in Airbnb.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's been a while like that, but things on the street are going pretty well, I would say. We had an isolation for about 2 months, if
Hmm.
I'm right, and then they decided to get rid of most of the measures. So people started to go out. Everybody just thought that it's basically gone. So the thing, in my opinion, that is really frustrating for the people is, especially in my country, there is constant dispute whether we should wear masks or not. So most of the people consider the fact that if they're wearing a mask, they're safe. They're not.
Ah.
So you've got to keep your distance. I find that so important, and um, people don't do it very often. So we got another peak, and we're at something like isolation, but not a real one now again.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a similar story to here. We have some of the same fights going on over whether or not to wear masks. And we're definitely, we never even came down off the first peak. We kind of hit it and then stabilized a little bit and then started climbing again because they started opening up. So, how is that affecting your business? I mean, I know you're still doing the podcast and, critiques and things like that, but how is that affecting you guys being able to have an income with photography?
Well, about the photography part, it's okay, to be honest, because I shoot for big companies. I shoot with advertising agencies, which means that often I'm getting my money like 2 or 3 months later. So
Right.
now is a good time to collect. The good thing is, because the situation is not that tight right now, people are starting to shoot again. So I'm
Hmm.
happy about it, to be honest. But because of the podcast, we decided that it's going to be better to stick to people. And, when it's a podcast, it's a record. So it's
Right.
very, very hard, yeah, to connect with people the right way. So we decided with the beginning of the isolation to actually ditch all kinds of recorded episodes. We delayed everything and we started with different lives. First
Hmm.
off, I think we started with Instagram lives with the followers and the listeners of the podcast. We were just discussing the situation, seeing if everyone is okay. Not that we can do a lot for a person who is on the other end of the world, basically, but
Yeah.
even if you just listen to someone's problems and you reassure them, and I'm very, very happy to say that our community is super strong and it's super positive, and I love that. So it was so cool when we were doing these live sessions and everybody was like, well, you know what? Things are not perfect, but I learned to, let's say, meditate, or I
Hmm.
started to shoot more of still life photography. So there was like a good sum up after every life like that. And eventually we started a YouTube channel. Maybe something that we were supposed to do a long time ago, but I think everything happens for a reason and also at the right time. So this was the right time for us. We started this YouTube channel, and every Monday we're discussing different behind the scenes projects of our ex guests. So next Monday, guys, Nicole is going to be our guest. Hop over. It's the fashion photography podcast again, as easy as that. And because I can see that people enjoy the live sessions and the YouTube channel so much.
Hmm.
I cannot give you too much information, but it's probably gonna stay. So if you're into if you're into YouTube, Yeah, definitely. I think it's the place. And still, the podcast is not going anywhere. We're still gonna have the episodes
Hmm.
only on audio, so everybody will be able to listen to it.
Right on. So, are you just going to take the recording from a live session and then just transfer that over from there?
Yeah, there are some surprises coming up, so this is part of the plan too. But yeah, it's gonna be exciting. I unfortunately I cannot give too much details, but yeah, I think it's gonna be exciting. Not just for me and George, of course, for the audience mostly.
Yes. Yeah. I can't wait to see what you guys are coming up with. So for you, let's backstory a little bit. So how did you first get into photography?
That's a very very long story, even longer than the previous one. So I'm actually one of three kids, and I'm in the middle. So
Oh.
yeah, so when I was little, in my family, we're a family of five, and everybody does whatever they want. My sister, seriously, my sister is a biologist. My brother is into security systems. Also, other things. My parents are into something completely different. And I was this kid that was like, well, I'm into the IT sector, but my brother is also into that. So I'm not going to touch it. I like biology, but not as much as my sister. And I really wanted to draw, but um, I I really always felt like it's just taking so long to draw something. And I
Yes.
wasn't really that patient. And my sister was really into photography. And this was her hobby, you know. I was like, I'm not touching it. It's something that she does. But in my country, after the the seventh grade, after the seventh grade, you were supposed to go and study something more narrow, something specific. And I was like, well, I don't care what I'm gonna study. I just don't care. And my parents freaked out. My mother was so supportive. My father too. They're always very supportive, but they were freaking out. I could have, yeah. So I decided to go to a school that was really unpopular, and I had,
Oh,
yeah, like it was a very special school, not for like people that need special care, but it was most of the schools in my country, you just have to do two exams, math and language, and that's it.
okay.
And I didn't want it to go to them. I was good at both, but I didn't really care. So I was like, I don't care. I'm not going to these exams, and I don't care what I'm going to study because I was just so lost. I only knew how to draw, and I didn't really wanted to do it. So I said this, and my mother found this school, and she was like, just go try it out. It's not, you don't have to take these exams. They have different exam for each and every category. So I went there. I saw that they have some fashion designs, things with drawing, because that's what I knew. Uh,
Hmm.
and there was um, this program that was called Audiovision, and I was like, what is this supposed to mean? We're like seven in the seventh grade. What am I? So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sign up for this too. So I signed up. I went to the exam. It was such a fun exam. We had to watch a movie without the final scenes, and
Oh,
yeah, it was a great exam. And then we had to write down um, an ending to the movie, and I
hmm.
ended up writing seven different endings.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just there for the fun, you know. I still had no idea what I'm signing up for, and I was first this exam, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go and see what's happening. I talked to one of the teachers, and she actually told me that I'm gonna study photography, cinema, directing, and audio things.
Sure.
So I got really excited, and she probably saw it in me, and she was like, just go home, think about it, come back tomorrow and tell me whether you want to be signed. And I remember I was sitting on my chair in my room And it was just hilarious thinking how much I want to go for this, because I really knew how much I like photography, because I had a chance at a party at home. My sister was somewhere, and my mother and her brother-in-law were just in one of, like, passing by, and they were like, "Hey, can you take a photo of us?" They gave me the camera. I took a shot, and I was like, you know what? It was one of those super old cameras, the little
Mhm.
ones. And there is like just such a small part of a second where when you click, you can only see black.
Okay.
And when I did that, I realized that something amazing is happening. This moment will never come back. They will never be the same age. They'll never be the same happy in this happy state, and so on and so on. And I just realized what was happening, and I told no one. I just passed the camera, and I was like, this is what I want to do. But then I had to take the exams. I went to this program, and I was just sitting in my chair in my room, and my father opened the door, and he was like, "You want to go there, right?" And I was like, "Very much." And he just said, "Go for it, sign up."
Oh.
So yeah, my parents are absolutely amazing. So I signed up for this. Then I think 3 years later, I was just, what? The funny thing is, sometimes when people see your clients, when they
Hmm.
see where are you speaking, what do you do? And sometimes people are like, well, she was lucky.
Oh,
you know,
right.
it's never luck. Let's just say it. It's never luck. You can be a lucky person, but you also have to work a lot to put yourself in the situation to be lucky.
Yes.
So I was sending so many emails. I sent emails to every single person out there in the business of magazines. And of course, I did not get an answer. But 3 months later, my phone rang, and there was a lovely lady on the other side, and she was like, "Well, you you have sent us an email a couple of months ago, and our photographer is going on a maternity leave. So we need
Oh.
another photographer. Do you want to come by tomorrow and show me your portfolio?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, of course." Hang up the phone, ran to the photo studio to print something. Yeah,
Yeah, of course I will. Just let me grab my
sure.
portfolio.
Printed some stuff, went there. She liked them. And I was really lucky in this moment because she asked, um, what do you do? And I was like, well, I study photography. And she
Hmm.
did not ask me which grade because she didn't knew. She was like, oh, for how many years? Because, at the university, she taught that I'm
Right.
there. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I immediately understood how important this answer is going to be. And I was like, well, I'm in my third year. But I did not tell her that I'm still um, at the high school. And she was like, okay, okay, good, good, perfect. So the thing is, when you work for as a freelancer for magazines, for the people that don't know, you're not at the office. They're calling you, and they're like, well, you have an assignment tomorrow, or how about next week, and so on. So you're not at the office. And when you work with big magazines, they're usually on different floors. So I had to work with two magazines, and they were both at the second floor, but I was taking my checks from the first floor. So they never had to sign up anything for me. Only the people on the first floor knew that I'm under 18. Yeah. So at my 18th birthday, everybody was just so surprised when I went there with some sweets. Yeah. And from then on, university with photography, I started assisting different people, which was very interesting for everyone because for my colleagues, I mean, because they all wanted to shoot for magazines, and I was already doing it. And
Hmm.
suddenly I decided to go assist. And they were like, what are you doing? We all want your job, and now you're
Right.
making a step back. I really don't think it was a step back. I'm very, very grateful for the years I was able to assist. And then an MA. So I got in all photography. That's all.
So it's really just always been photography.
Always. Yeah,
That's so
basically.
fun. It's interesting how many photographers have started off with saying, I loved to draw, but I was never good at it, or I never could make it be what I wanted, or like it took so much time and then photography came along. It's so interesting how it's a medium that allows people to really express themselves so quickly. Like it does take a long time with traditional art forms to be able to properly express yourself. There's like this long period of like copying other people and everything looking like junk and anatomy being crazy. And then with photography, it seems like that feeling of having done an important thing, you're able to get that so quickly.
I was good at drawing, to be honest. I just never really felt like this is my thing. It was
Mm-hmm.
taking me a lot of time, but I was good at it. I believe that because I really loved doing graphic stuff, when you do graphic stuff, this means that you're very good at understanding light.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this was a great advantage for me because when I stepped into photography, I was just lighting for me was just so easy. I knew exactly what I wanted to do in order to achieve something. So I'm very grateful for this years, to be honest with you. It was a huge part of my life, and now I cannot draw a thing. Like so bad at it.
Oh no.
No, you cannot even imagine. You should see some of my mood boards because sometimes when I've got an idea and I want to draw it, just sketch it really fast. And everybody in my team is like, what is that? So when I'm sketching something, there is always a text next to it because no one can understand. Yeah, unfortunately, but
That's so funny. I noticed my drawing fell off as I had kids, and then picked back up once I decided I wanted to start making the time for it. But I definitely, I know that feeling of seeing something that you have been good at or have been used to do, and then all of a sudden, like that skill is gone, and you're like, oh no. But
you're very good at this. You don't have the word for that.
oh well, it's definitely. I mean, I all the it's funny the behind the scenes things which I know you have experienced. As you mentioned, it's not luck. There's of course all of the things that nobody sees, like the fact that you have been a photographer since you were almost a preteen, like you were very young when you started, and so
Yeah.
obviously there's these years of built up, and then um, I mean, I've been drawing since I was tiny, but of course I'm taking classes right now, online classes, and I still try to continue to do those things to improve those skills. And that's the stuff that nobody sees, right? They just see the
Yeah.
finished work and be like, Virginia, your photography is so amazing. You must be so talented. And you're like, well, a lot of work went
A
into
lot
that.
of
Like
work.
it wasn't
Even
just all of a sudden Virginia's amazing. She became amazing after years of work.
and still I think for everyone even now people are like, well, you probably don't do tests. I do tests all of the time. I don't do tests now because of the isolation, because
Right.
to be honest with you, I don't feel like we are surgeons. So if you can save someone, if you I personally prefer not to expose my team to any kind of threats.
Sure.
So I don't want to gather them during these times. If it's work, it's different in my opinion, because you can, like, this is the way you're earning for your soul and bread, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is something different. Everybody in the team has the ability to wait and decide whether they need a project or not. So, fortunately enough, I was able to say no to a couple of projects during the isolation because I decided for myself that this is what I prefer. But the thing is, outside of this situation, I'm constantly doing tests. And for me, it's super important. And it's important on many different levels because, first of all, yes, you're going to get better. The more you shoot, the better. But at the same time, you can prepare yourself for many, many things. Like, for example, you will know. when you do tests, you're usually doing tests with the new faces, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these models don't really know how to move, and you can guide them and you can help them. You can give them some direction, where to look at images, what to look for, and so on and so on, which is good for them and also for you, because
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow you're probably going to meet them with a team and with a client. And this means that you will know that these guys have some sort of preparation given from you, which means that they will probably meet your taste a bit better. And also, you know the way they act on the set. So if a client is like, well, I'm doubting between two girls. Can I have your thoughts about it? And you can say, well, this girl is going to fit better. Because, for example, of course, models are human.
Mm-hmm.
So this means that not every day for her is good. This means that tomorrow she can be a little bit sad or a little bit annoyed. But if you meet them a couple of times, you will understand whether this is just the situation or it's the way they act, which is okay if they act like that. But you know your client. So if you want to keep them, and this is, let's say, your first interaction with the client, you want everything to be perfect, right?
Right.
So you would like to pick a model that is let's say very open, very constantly smiling, very optimistic. And if you do that test, you'll know who this model is. So this
Right.
is going to help you on many different levels.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. And I certainly, if I have models I've worked with before that I know and I'm comfortable with them and they're comfortable with me, it seems like we definitely do better work on the whole than, meeting somebody for the first time and having to work through
Absolutely.
that with them, especially if you're looking at a client spending thousands or multiple thousands of dollars for a shoot.
Yeah. And also, there is one thing that I forgot to mention. The more tests you do, the more you're able to post. And we
Mm-hmm.
know how important that is. So, the more you post, the more clients will come. And this is something very important because many people are saying, like, well, I did 2 tests last year. And I posted, but I don't have clients. So the thing is with social media today, everything is just so fast that you
Mm-hmm.
have to be reminding your clients constantly about yourself. So the more you post, the more people will come to you. Because let's say that you're posting every 3 days, let's say, and I'm posting once a month. If I
Mm-hmm.
do that, I won't be in the right position to sit and compare myself next to you. I'll be
Mm-hmm.
like, well, you've got more clients than me. Of course, you've got more clients than me. Because when a client is opening their phone and, let's say, Instagram, for example, you're seeing Nicole, 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 Virginia, Nicole, 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 Virginia. So the more they see and listen to your name, the more they will remember you. So that's why it's so important and why everybody's like fighting for this likes and posting and so on and so on. But you can easily do that with tests.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, of course, that's not even talking necessarily about the fact that the more you shoot, the better you get. That's just a given, you know.
Absolutely.
And the more you dial in your vision, I think, as well, which sometimes it can't. So a friend of mine, Kate Woodman, she her work was really, really heavy. Like as soon as she started, she was shooting all the time. And for the first couple of years, she was just shooting constantly, a couple of times a week, maybe 3 times a week or more, just making content. And of course, you can see that progression of her work. It was a very steep curve. Like it's the more she worked and the better she got. Whereas somebody like me, where I had kids when I first started and I was working maybe 4 times a month. It just wasn't the same amount of work. And so my progression was much, much slower. And so within the first 5 years, she's up here. And if you would have comparatively, my first 5 years, I was probably down here.
Mhm.
So doing tests can really, I think, speed up your progression as well.
Absolutely. And many people think that doing tests is something very um, annoying, even. They don't find it interesting. But I think a test does not necessarily has to be just a plain background with a model in front of it. You can do all kinds of things with tests. And also at certain level, what I have noticed, because I've been shooting for this morning because of our conversation today, I was counting for how many years I've been shooting. So I've been shooting for 15 years. And the thing is, when you start, you're shooting friends, you're
Mm-hmm.
doing whatever you can, right? And then you start shooting with the crews, which is also amazing. Having a team, that's perfect. But the more you shoot, it's good for both you and your team because they can post more. And so, because a photographer needs a whole team, and that's
Right.
important because it's a teamwork. But a makeup artist can also work for a specific client for their event, let's say. A shoot doesn't even have to be included, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also, they can work with lots and lots and lots of photographers. And the thing is, you want to have the best team, right? You Once you reach a certain level, you don't want to go back and try with with makeup artists that are just starting now, right?
Right. Right.
You don't want to do it, but your makeup artist is getting super busy. You're starting with another one. You're having 3, 4, 5 makeup artists that you work with, but you're all very busy. So at one point, I realized that it's taking me so long to gather a team um, when everyone is going to have a free day,
Right.
that I'm delaying photo shoots and that I'm delaying tests. I mean, in order to create something that I want to do with the team. So I think it's also very nice at one point, if the people that are listening and looking at this right now, they should also consider the fact that you don't really need a crew always. You can just grab a model, talk to the agency before that for sure. You can grab a model and you can go out and just explore what you can do, because I think sometimes we forget, when we're too comfortable in the studio, we forget to go out. When we are too comfortable with natural light, we forget to use some flashes. So I think we should definitely go out of our comfort zone as, as much as we can. So
I agree.
yeah, if
Do you
someone is
think
complaining, they should just go out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's the best way as well to stave off that kind of creative ennui where you're like, I don't want to make anything, I'm getting burnt
Yeah.
out. If you're doing something outside your comfort zone, it definitely helps to kind of stave off that feeling of creative burnout.
I don't know about you. Is it the same for you? Every time that I shoot, the more I shoot, the more ideas I have.
Mm-hmm.
It's never like, oh, I'm too tired, I don't want to shoot anymore. It's like, oh, I want to also do that. And today, when we were doing the shoot, the makeup artist wanted to put this type of makeup on the
Right.
model. I was like, whoa, keep this idea for another time. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think this is super important. If you're in the creative field, definitely just this is an advice that I give very often in the podcast actually. If you're in a creative field, just go to Pinterest, pick the photos that you really, really love at this moment, and try and combine, let's say, look at 5 images and try to combine in one of your images
Mm.
the things that you love the most from this 5 images. So this way you won't copy anyone, you'll create something from your own soul and your heart, and you're going to have a good result. And you don't always need like a gazillion photos. You can have like 5 or 6 photos from a shoot, and
Right.
that's fine as long as
Yeah.
they're
Yeah, yeah, agreed. And I would much rather see 5 really spectacular photos from somebody than 20 that are fine and a
yeah,
couple that are really great. I'd be like, so are they really great or are they mostly fine? And then every now and then they get lucky. Like, that's what I would be wondering.
yeah.
So, with posting on social media, have you found that you get clients regularly that way, or is it just a kind of way to keep yourself top of mind?
To be honest with you, I'm really bad at social media. I'm really bad at social media because I don't really have the time for it. Because social media takes a lot of time.
It
So
really does.
yeah, and I want to do it the proper way. I don't want to. I look at, let's say, my Instagram account because I find it the most photographic
Right.
social media. So when I look at my Instagram account, I want it to look curated. I want it to look like you're in an exhibition room. I don't want you to just be lost there. So I was really my my history with Instagram is very complicated because I was one of the very first few people that got Instagram in my country. I was like,
Hmm.
"Well, that's interesting," but I wasn't posting for years, which is not the best
Right.
because yeah, the algorithms back then were amazing. So
Yeah.
if I did that, I right now I would have been amazing there, but I did. So I kept liking photos. I kept just posting comments, but I did not really upload it anything. And I started uploading when the algorithms went down, which means Facebook bought it. Let's be
Yep.
honest.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was a struggle. I know. I think I have about 4,000 people, which is not much, but it's simply because I'm not posting regularly, and that's because I found stories. And I really,
Ah,
this is the place where you can, you know what, I really like the feed in terms of curating it, but when you go to a gallery, you never really want to, you don't want to stick to the gallery, right? You want to just see some art, but you don't really care about the gallery, like
right.
the place, the room, or something like that. So there is no really soul to it, you know.
Mm,
Images make it. So I realized that people actually want to connect to you. They want to connect to other people. They don't just want to connect to, um, let's say, 10, 100 beautiful images, and that's it.
right.
So I wasn't able to incorporate this into my feed, but with the story, it's something completely different because I think the last half a year, I really started to open up in my stories, post parts of my life, what I do during the day, whether I'm shooting or not, what am I doing to improve my shooting, just doing basic Q&As with the people that are following me and so on. So this for me was important. And right now I'm posting a lot on my stories. If you guys open it right now, I probably got like 8 stories. I don't know
Right.
today. Um, but I keep posting images. I just don't do it that often because I have to sit down, I have to write the text. I'm not really good at writing. I'm very good at speaking, as you can say. Yeah, but I just don't want to. I don't want to do it.
Right. No, I sympathize with you there. I am in general really not a fan of having to go about it that way. And I've had some good advice given to me that I need to just change my mindset about it so that it becomes more of a way to connect with people and, like do good things. And so I need to sit down and actually take some time to do that. But right now it just feels more like a necessary inconvenience that I don't love.
I think it's
But
going to be very suitable for you, to be honest, because you're good at talking, you're good at connecting with people, and I think stories in particular really gives you that option, and that's why I really like them.
so have you
Because
found, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, no, no.
Oh, I was just wondering, have you found then for you that stories is actually the better fit?
Oh, definitely. Because the more I talk to people, the more they tell me that they don't really even scroll their feed. Everyone is
Oh,
just looking at stories. And
gotcha.
this is working much better for me. So
Hmm.
the thing in my case is just that I've got to remind clients and future clients that I'm around.
Right.
And when you do that, people are coming. And what I have found is that people are very often like, well, I don't have clients, what am I supposed to do? But even the other day I actually saw a whole post on Facebook from a person saying how offended they are that their friends are picking different photographers and not them.
Oh,
and and it's a struggle. I mean, I get it. It's a struggle, and it's so brave to admit it in your feed that this is hurting you. But
yeah.
at the same time, there were people commenting, "Whoa, are you a photographer?" So if people are asking me this,
Ah,
yeah, there is something wrong. So in order to get clients, the first thing that you can do right this second is to just call a few friends. Call a few friends and tell them, hey, bro, I'm a photographer. They probably know if they're your friends, anyways. And just tell them, hey, you know what? If anyone is looking for a photographer, just bring up my name.
right.
And that's it. So if people know what you're doing, sooner or later, they will remember and they'll recall your name and they'll call you or find you. So it's very important to remind everyone that you're a photographer. I
Mm-hmm.
started something new lately. I started a podcast in my language, which was
Oh,
very new.
great.
Yeah, very different for me. Something I've never done before. And it's not related to photography. So it's the very first thing that I do. And it's not related to photography in my life. And some people were like, well, if you do that, your clients will be frustrated. They will think that you're quitting photography and starting something new. And I was like, yeah, probably. But what if I address that? So at
Right.
the very beginning of the intro, I was like, hey guys, I'm doing something new, which doesn't mean I'm quitting photography. I love it. I'm going to continue to do it. I'm good at
Mm-hmm.
it. So if you need me as a photographer, you know where to find me. But if you
Sure.
need this particular knowledge, you can find it here in the podcast. So addressing things, I think it's very important. It's my lesson that it really took me like about half a year, if not a whole year, to learn that I can
Mm-hmm.
also do other things, but I need to be open about it and say it in front of everyone. I'm not quitting. I'm still here. So
Right.
if you need me, you know who to call, right? So I think this is one of the biggest mistakes that people do when we go to finding clients. You're keeping shut about it. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I even see Instagram accounts. Like I open the Instagram account, I know that this person is a photographer, let's say, but I don't see anything related to photography. I don't see it in their feed. I don't see it in their
Right.
story. I don't see it even on their bio. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I've got days when you cannot even tell from my stories what I'm doing because, like, I'm a human. You know how it goes. Sometimes you can be cooking and going to meetings, and of course, you cannot post from meetings.
Right.
You've done your photography job for today, but you cannot share about it. So, of course, I've got days like this on my story, but this is who you are, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be ashamed or afraid to say it. So if you're not shooting like every day of the week, it's okay, it's all right. There are very few freelancers that actually shoot every day of the week,
Right.
so
This
you're
is
good.
true. So, do you find then keeping your feed, the Instagram feed, more for imagery as like a secondary portfolio, and then having the stories be more where people can kind of connect with you personally seems to be like a good fit?
For me, it's a good fit. I bet that for different people, it's going to be different, to be honest with you. Sometimes I can even see from friends that are also photographers, I can see that they're posting on their feed and then they're posting the same thing, not even pre link. It's just a post on their story of the same image. And that's
Right.
also good. So this is their way. Of course, everyone can just try and see what's going to work for them, what's going to work for their audience, because you really need to know who you're talking to. And this is something that I've learned from talks and speaking gigs, that you really, really got to know the audience. So, for example, if you're meeting, let's say, a teenage audience, there is no really a point to talk about the difficulties of finding clients after 10 years of experience, right? And when you're talking to pro photographers that have done the job and they're working for quite a while now, you're probably supposed to talk about some deeper topics. So it's the same with Instagram. You have to know your audience. And how do you get to know your audience? Maybe people will ask. Well, you have to start a conversation, because if you're just sitting on a street, and that's exactly what Instagram is, to be honest, it's just that was something I heard yesterday from a friend of mine, and she's amazing. She's a digital strategist for
Oh,
a,
okay.
yeah, for a big television. So she really knows her things.
Right.
And she said something very interesting to me. She was like, social media is just another reflection of our normal life, and that's true. So if we talk about Instagram, it's enough for you to imagine that you're on a busy street, and if it's a busy street, people probably want to pass you by. So you need to
Hmm.
start a conversation with someone, and maybe other people are just going to surround you too and talk to you too. But you are not the one who is supposed to stay silent and
Right.
just look at people and try to figure out what they're thinking, because they're going to pass you by. And once you look at someone's back, it's very hard to say what they're thinking. Yeah.
Very true. Yeah, I've noticed one of the things I think for those of us when we first start out and we're like, why is nobody hiring me? I do really good work. And it's like your work has nothing to do with it. If you're not putting it in front
Yeah.
of people, they don't know that you're there. And I think that definitely becomes kind of the war of attention, right? Like we're constantly in this battle to try to get people to notice what we're making. And I really like that idea that, using the stories as a chance for you to show a more personal side. So people do feel like they can connect with you personally. And then you don't just become Virginia photographer, you become
Yeah.
this real person, that they can see and like and want to follow and be interested in your work from there.
And it's so amazing because it can also connect you in a better way with clients that you already have. So, for
Mhm.
example, during the isolation, just like half of the world, I really got into plants. I
Oh,
really like.
yeah.
So I'm posting about them, and for example, even today. And by the way, guys, you don't have to post right now. Like if you're doing it right now, you don't have to post it in this very minute. So, for example, today was a very busy day for me. I had to go and drop some prints. I had to prep them before that. And I also had I had a meeting, I had lots of stuff to do. But I also spent a little bit of time for me. It was important for me. So I went shopping, some basic household stuff, and I also got some pots for my plants because they really need to be repotted. And I really felt like that, and shot just a short video of me buying the pots.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna post it tomorrow because I don't really have the power to do it today.
Yeah.
But it turned out, because during the isolation, I was posting of this my new hobby. And it turned out that some of my previous clients are also into this. And some
Ah,
of them were going to exchange some plants, which is even better. It's just building a deeper relationship with someone that you already know. And for example, they've been your clients for just once, but now they're going to return because they simply have more things to talk to you about.
right.
So this is also nice, and I think it's very important for the people to realize that now in 21st century, clients are not choosing because your work is just
Right.
awesome,
Right.
or because you've got the lowest price or something like that. They choose you because you're a good person. They want to work with you. And I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to take this momentum and bring it to another level, because in the past years, we all know about some stories about photographers, about clients, about people that are just taking advantage of their position. And this can be like, we can talk this on different levels, from the Me Too movement to just different stories from, let's say, makeup artists that are explaining afterwards how a photographer's been screaming to them all
Right.
day, or the client was super rude. So I think it's amazing opportunity for all of us to learn that we don't have to necessarily do that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
life is just so short. If you don't like it, you should probably do something about it. So I don't really want to work with douchebags. I don't.
Yes.
So if a client is acting like this on a meeting, I'm just going to leave the meeting, or I'm going to give like a humongous price, and at least I'll know where I'm going and what I'm doing. Um, so this is still happening. I cannot lie. I cannot be like, no, things like this are just fairy tales. That's not true. I went to a meeting with a client before the isolation. He was the one approaching me. I went there. He was with his assistant, and he was like, "Okay, so what do you do? What type of photography?" And I was like, "You didn't even take. What am I doing here? You don't even know my work." And he was like, he probably did not expected this because he acted like this. He probably expected me to say, well, I do fashion advertising photography. I've been doing this. I'm not that person. Like, if you haven't done the job, why am I wasting my time?
Right.
So I was very respectful, but I let him know that this is not okay for me. And I was just like, well, if you want to work with me next time, take a look at my work, and then we can meet again. And then this time we're not going to waste each other's time. Okay. And I left. And I believe this is something that we should all do. Like, we should respect, first of all, ourselves, not in a way to go like complete ego centered, because that's crazy. But you should respect, like, there is, you know what, I think I read something a while ago where somebody said it to me. I don't know, but it was amazing and it just stuck to my mind. um it was what was it? Yeah, whenever you're in a certain situation, just act and give yourself the advice you would give to your best friend.
Mm.
And I loved it, because if we do that, we would get rid of very bad situations.
Yes, yes, this is true. I find it really easy for us to kind of rationalize things to ourselves, or also sometimes absolutely out of fear, like, oh, I don't want to lose this opportunity, or I need, to make this connection, or I don't want. And then unfortunately, we end up putting ourselves in positions where we're dealing with people who don't respect us, or who take us for granted, or who expect more of us than we're willing to give. And all because, we're afraid of hearing no, or afraid of
Yeah.
walking away.
Let's ask also people in the comments, are you guys overthinking? Especially things like that. I know it's hard, and it's a very hard balance, to be honest, because you can be rude in situations like this, and you really shouldn't be. You
Right.
really shouldn't be, because the world is very small, so you don't know who you'll have to work with tomorrow. So better don't be rude, but still stand your ground. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
deserve some. Everybody deserve to be treated well, and this is the way we should go about it. So
Yep.
you're treating well the other people, and they're supposed to treat you the same way. If not, just tell them, like, be out open and honest about it. Be like, hey, I'm really here to talk to you. Like, this is part of my time too. So how about if I open my Instagram so that you can see? And if you think that what I'm doing is worthy of you, let's continue this conversation. But if not, I really have a lot of things to do, and I don't want to waste both yours and my time. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what I did. It was basically, sorry, man, what the hell are we doing here? You haven't even opened your Instagram.
Right.
Um, but it really depends how you're going to put it like that. And you know this, you're a writer. It depends
Mm-hmm.
so much what kinds of words you're going to use. So I think if a person really wants to, they can get out of a situation like that in a really polite way. Of course, when I went out of this meeting, I was so pissed, to be honest with you. Yeah, I told him
Right.
exactly what I told you. I'm going to open my Instagram. You can take a look at it. I was very polite, but once I went out of this meeting, I was just so pissed. I called my man and was like, can you imagine? And he was also very pissed. And he was like, what did you do? I told him, and he was silent for like a half a minute. And he was like, well, I don't want to admit it, but you did the right thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's true. One of my favorite sayings is you teach people how to treat you.
yeah,
And if you don't establish what is acceptable and not acceptable, then it's easy for people to step out because they don't know where the boundaries are if you never
true.
make the boundaries, if you don't let people know. And a friend and I were actually talking about that the other day about, working with, at times when somebody reschedules at the last minute or times that somebody wants to meet with you. And fail to realize that I'm meeting with you now, but this is time that I could be editing. This is time that I could be marketing. This is time. These are the other ways that I provide myself an income. I'm taking my time out of that to make this connection with you or to do this thing. And my time is valuable and yours is valuable. And you do have
Yeah.
to kind of draw those lines in the sand to let people know where you stand and what things you will and will not allow.
I think this is a very it, it's easy to learn how to do it once you've worked for quite a while and you've discussed price.
Right.
Once you've done that, you can kind of sense where this is going even before we talk and finalize things. For example, sometimes there are clients that are calling and they're really not prepared for the conversation. Let's say it's their first photo shoot, they're starting a collection, not even having a second wear, something like that. They're starting a collection. They don't know how this conversation is supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very educational in this kinds of
Yes.
yeah, conversations. I'm like, okay, you can do this. You've got different options. You can try and do this, or if your budget is not allowing you, there are different options for you. Like I'm trying to give them the chance to understand where things are going and how you're supposed to do it. So I'm always giving them this type of knowledge, and I'm always saying, however, you don't necessarily have to do it with me. My prices are higher. So if you decide to go with another photographer, I will totally understand. But this is what you are supposed to expect, so that even these guys are not becoming your clients today, tomorrow with the second there is a bug in the room with their second collection, they're probably going to call you because you were the one who explained the things. And also, I'm not doing it so that they can call me, to be honest. I'm doing it because if we're all going for this in the educational side, they will know, they'll be thought, and also the market will be thought, because the next
Right.
photographer she's going to call, she'll be like, well, what if we don't how about your budget, probably because that's what clients are starting with, and they're the young photographer is saying, well, my budget is $3, and she'll be like, well, okay, so my budget is $1, but I want to work with you. So let's see what we can do. Maybe we can do this. Maybe we can do that. So this is giving the opportunity to the client, but also to the photographer. Because if you say simply like, my rate is $3, that's it. So they don't have $3. They have to call another person, and you're not getting even one. So you can negotiate things. And talking, I think it's one of the main things in photography. Like, we're shooting just, it's just so fast. It's basically not even a second.
Right.
Literally, yeah. And at the same time, we've got to talk to the team, to the model, to the client. So we really have to learn how to do it. And in order to learn how to do it, we've got to just do it a lot. We've
Right.
got to put ourselves in the situation. Whether we talk about real client or like many people are, what I'm seeing is that many people are waiting for the client to call them. Go
Yeah.
ahead, call clients. They'll probably say no, especially if you're at the very first year, but you will know how to talk to them at the end of the year. So The second year, when you've done a lot of test work, when one client calls you, you'll know what to answer.
Yeah.
Be like, let's do this. Let's go ahead and talk about it. And if you do that, the client is going to be yours. But many people think that it's just an easy job and it's something that is going to happen super fast. It won't. You have to do
Right.
a lot of work for that.
Yeah, 100%. And I have some follow-up questions I want to ask you about that. But
Go
before
ahead.
I do, Scott has asked a question of you. He's wanting to know, with my limited experience in modeling, would it be prudent to look for an agent as a model? And then just as a preface to that, Scott is an actor as well. And then so the modeling he does is generally character type of modeling.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you've seen any of the like the cowboy series and things like that I've done. He often has modeled for me in
Oh,
situations
that's so
like that.
cool.
So
Awesome.
yeah,
Of
yeah,
course, I've seen them. Well, Scott, if I were you, I would definitely approach some agencies. You know why? Because you're not wasting any chance. Like, they'll either say yes or no. And if they say no, you can go ahead and approach them in 6 months. And in 6 months, everything can be different. They might not, right now, I don't know how much they have, like how much work they have, because if they don't have much work, they will probably won't get a lot of new models. But their logic can be completely different. They might be like, well, right now it's isolation, so right after the isolation, we've got to start super well. So we need some new faces. So what I would suggest is for you to try and again put yourself in situations. You've got this gorgeous contact with Nicole. Just ask her to shoot a bit more, invest in a portfolio. This is important, and especially with talking about actors, I think this is so important because most of the models has to have some sort of acting in their heart, not as an experience, but they need to know how to express their feelings just like I'm sorry, just like an actor. So it would definitely be like, yeah, go ahead, approach modeling agencies because it's just another opportunity. It's gonna put you in a really good situations because once you're in this type of society, it's very easy. Like we, the photographers, are quite close with the videographers and the video people. So it, you don't know who you're going to meet tomorrow. You can go for modeling agencies. Sometimes people from the advertising world are looking for yeah, exactly. They're looking for actors, but they're looking for faces sometimes. So
yep.
they're modeling agencies. And when they do that, your agent will know that you're also an actor. They'll be like, yeah, I've got the perfect person for you. And you're going to appear on a screen, let's say, get to work and talk to the crew, and this can open like 100 million options for you. And on the other side, they might say no. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. So if they don't say no, if they don't say yes, just be okay with that. Like really try again in 6 months. That's completely fine. And modeling agencies know that people do that, and it's okay
Mm-hmm.
for them too. So there are people that are sending modeling agencies their new um, images like basically every 2 months.
Right.
So wait for six, and just a very important note, don't send the same images 6 months after. Just try and work on a new portfolio so that you can send something good and new so that they can see that you've got a lot of potential. That's important. And you've got my fingers crossed for them to say yes, of course.
Right on. That was a fantastic answer. And then Gary asked, do you have desires of photography beyond fashion? And do you have a dream shoot?
Well, I also do advertising, and I've got some really good clients there, which is making me very happy because after a lot of years working with fashion, I realized that, you know what, I'm not that type of photographer that can tell you, like, I can definitely tell designers, but I'm not that type of photographer that is super obsessed with fashion. Like for me, it doesn't matter that this is going to cost like a gazillion dollars or it's going to be like $5 in secondhand. I don't really care about that. I care about the fact that this is going to suit me well, that this is going to look good on me. And I realized that doing fashion photography is exactly that in my case. What I'm still interested in when I shoot fashion, and this is closely related to the first story that I told you, I was really into graphics. So my work is very strong when we talk about graphics, light, and shape. I really know how to sell these things. Unfortunately, fashion photography is all about that because you've got to show the clothes exactly the way it is. You've got to show the texture, which you do with light. So I was really the perfect fit for it. And at one point, I realized that I'm good at selling the product. And I'm also very interested, like in any type or chance I'm good at psychology, but I'm interested.
Right.
Like I'm curious. So in advertising photography, there is a lot of psychology. So I got really interested into that. Yeah. And I started also pushing myself as an advertising photographer when I had no advertising work in my portfolio. I was like, I'm an advertising photographer. Doesn't matter who I was talking to. Like I'm shooting advertising in fashion. And, there is a saying in my country, once you repeat a lie 100 times, it certainly becomes reality. So, it, of course, I'm kidding about that, but I told so many people, and I wasn't really shooting for advertising client, but I was testing. I
Right.
was, yeah. So I was trying to put some images, advertising images, in my portfolio, even if they weren't commissioned by a client. So very closely after the moment I started saying that I'm an advertising photographer, I became having my very first advertising clients. So now I've got some huge agencies in my portfolio. I've got clients like Huawei, let's say. So this is making me super, super happy. But again, it took a lot of effort.
Right.
So I'm still very, very interested into fashion and advertising photography. And I'm really happy by both, to be honest, because they're very different in my opinion.
Mm,
They've got a lot of similarities, but they're very different. Like when we talk about fashion photography, you can go crazy. You can do whatever you want. And most of the time, the team is like that. Even when you're working for a magazine and they're commissioning you, and you're like talking to a serious person, you're talking to the head of everyone, and you're like, well, what if we put her on a pony and like put on her head a, I don't know, something crazy. And they're like, well, I know the way you shoot, so probably gonna look good. Um, but you cannot do that with advertising. Definitely. Most of the time, you've got a brief, you've got to follow very strict instructions. But it's also very interesting because when you do that, there is a point in everything. Like
mm-hmm.
if you have to put a certain dot on the left corner, there is a, a reason for that.
Yeah.
And I really like that. It's very structured.
Yes. Yeah. Which it's it got to be nice to have some framework to work off of,
Yeah.
just to help build things, because sometimes it's nice not to have to build everything from the ground up and just be able to be like, okay, this is here. How do I work with it? Rather than like build everything all by myself
Yeah,
again.
they're still going to listen to you if you've got any ideas or something
Right.
like that. Today, one of my meetings was exactly with one of the agencies. I had another meeting last week, and we still talk about a project that we're going to shoot in the beginning of next month. But we're discussing this, like it's not they're giving you the instructions and you just have to follow. So you can talk about this, but it has to be really well pre-thought.
Right.
I
So
don't know if I
for
answered the question.
I think so. I mean, it seems like the advertising is the other thing beyond fashion that you're mostly focusing on.
I
The
also
other
do
part of his question was if you have a dream shoot.
I don't know if I have a dream shoot, but I'm really feeling very, very well next to the water. And obviously, my photos are looking well next to the water because, like, yeah, I've shot near the sea for like, I think because I cannot show everything that I shoot. So I think it's about 5 shoots overall in my entire life, but everybody seems to love them.
Yeah.
Like from those that I can share and um, show to people, but everybody loves them. So I really feel well around water, and I think maybe it's going to be something like that.
That would be really cool. I would like to see that. So, kind of just drawing from that, guys, as we reach the end of the show, we're going about 70 minutes so far. So, if you guys have any more questions for Virginia, make sure that you get them in. And in the meantime, as we wait to see if they have any more questions, I was just wanting to know, for the sake of people who are wanting to get into fashion and advertising, as you mentioned earlier, when you first started, you did put yourself out there by getting a hold of clients and letting them know that you existed. So what can photographers do to start trying to build up a client base?
Well, I think we talked about it a lot, and I think we gave them a lot of clues
Yes.
what to do. But let's be honest, 15 years ago, that was 15 years ago when I started, when I was sending these emails. And I think it's still relevant today. I think if people just reach out to those that they want to work with, this is going to help them. And also in the podcast, we're giving so many advice on this topics.
Yes.
So they can definitely check out that. And the good thing is, yes, every other Friday I'm giving advice and I'm answering questions, but we are also discussing those topics with different people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one when you can think about something, and it's very, very different when like 75 people can come up with an answer.
Right.
So there are going to be probably 76 answers.
Right.
So people can definitely check out the podcast.
And where do they find it?
Well, it's photographypodcast.net, or if you prefer to listen to, let's say, Spotify or iTunes, it's just as simple as the Fashion Photography Podcast. That's it.
Perfect.
The Fashion Photography Podcast. And of course, YouTube. That's something so important right now because huge things are going to happen there. So again, the Fashion Photography Podcast. We weren't really creative with that name. Just straightforward.
Sometimes straightforward is better.
Yeah.
Because creative stuff can get confusing.
Yeah, right. You cannot really get confused with the Fashion Photography Podcast. It's just that easy.
Right.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say something. When we were talking about the fashion and advertising photography, I also do something that I do not really announce, but I think it's going to be of a help of people. So I also do some fine art photography.
Mm-hmm.
And I do sell this. And why I think it's important to say this this time, I think it's very important for the people to know that you should have as many income streams from photography as you can. So if you're good at, let's say, photography overall, but you're also into fine art and into fashion and into weddings, there is nothing wrong with that. Just create different websites for this and say it to the different people. So for example, if you are going to marry tomorrow, I won't be like, hey, Nicole, you know what? I've got some really fine art, really nice fine art photography pieces that maybe you will be interested in. So you've got to know your audience, as I said. And I think this is going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so too. And I definitely want to come back to that. But just to kind of summarize during the course of our conversation. So Virginia's advice thus far: shoot often. Don't be afraid to test. Get your work out there so that people can see it and make sure that it's good work. Try to connect with people personally if you can. get a hold of the kind of people you want to work with, and don't be afraid to hear the word no. And remember that you can always come back later with new work and reapproach those people. Um, and
Pretty much
and
that's it.
right,
Be
and
positive.
trust your vision, right? Like
Yeah.
you have a strong background, so you know kind of those qualities of your work that you can lean on. So people can definitely take some time and look at their own work and find out what they're drawn to and what the kind of major supports of their work are, so that they understand what they're actually giving to people when they work with them.
I think not everybody has the ability to judge their work,
True.
which is totally fine. Like people should not be afraid of that. Just
So they
find a
should submit
mentor.
to your critique sessions.
Yeah. And even if we don't talk about me, just find a mentor. Today, we've got such an amazing opportunity. You can get a mentor from the other side of the world. You can get a mentor that
Yep.
is right next to you. Many people think, especially in the fashion photography world, many people think that they need agents. And
Mm-hmm.
what they really need is a mentor, because they don't even know how to approach clients. So a
Right.
mentor can tell you that, but an agent has a completely different job. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to mentors to find out where your work is. And many people are also afraid to hear the feedback. And that's
Right.
because when we talk about, like, let's say we did two portfolio reviews last week and the previous one on the YouTube channel, and some people reach out to us and they were like, well, I really want to do it, but I'm afraid. There is
Mm-hmm.
no reason for you to be afraid. Like, the whole idea of a thing like that is not to harm you or um, like put you in a bad position. The whole thing is for you to become better. And you really have to know that. But also, you really have to want it in order to put yourself in this position.
Yep.
Do we
Yep.
have any other questions?
Nothing is coming up. Nope.
Okay. If
So
anybody has questions, I'm also going to wait for them on Instagram.
yes. So on Instagram. And then also, you can always, for people who are not watching this live, for people who are watching this later, you can always put questions in the comments section as well. This will be written up later as an article for F-Stoppers. And so
Uh-huh.
when that goes, you'll be able to kind of check there as well. And there'll be just kind of a summary and then also some additional information and some more of Virginia's work for you to check out. And I usually have kind of an ending question, but I want to wait for that just a second, just to bring up the fact that there seems to be a very interesting thread that has tied many of the conversations that I've had with photographers together so far. And that is this diversity of income streams, because it seems to be, and I don't know if other photographers have thought this as well before they've been in the industry for very long, but I know that I certainly did. I just made the assumption that every photographer who was working was making a living off of photography alone and the main genre that they worked in. Like, I just thought that that was entirely the thing. Like, fashion photographers only did fashion, and wedding photographer, and that's how they made a living. And in a weird way, I felt very guilty that I had not been able to do that. Like, I was shooting multiple things and I was also doing other things as well. And so I thought, man, I must not be that good at business or marketing, or maybe my work isn't good enough that I can't make a living just doing this one thing. And I have realized over the course of not only my own photographic journey, but talking to other people as well. I partly make my living off of photography, and then also I'm a freelance writer as well. And it's not always photography related, but most of the time it's photography adjacent, at least. And also I do cartoon work and digital art
Yeah.
as well. And so sometimes I earn income from there. And so it definitely seems like the days of just photography alone, or one genre of photography alone, or one area of photography alone, don't seem to be able to support photographers the way that potentially they used to. But it certainly seems like diversifying is almost a necessity now.
It's a whole new conversation, and I'm open to it. I think it's going to be a very long one to continue in this conversation.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think it's always been like that. Yes, the money in the business are going like lower, and they're not that good right now. But the thing is, I think you're very clever to do this. I also very often say that when you go into photography, you have to have some sort of business background. It doesn't mean that you have to study business, but trust me, I've eaten books for business, like for lunch and dinner, for everything.
Yeah.
So I'm really approaching this as a business. I'm not just a photographer. I'm a business person.
Right.
So I think it's very important for everyone stepping into the business to know this. They're stepping into a business. They're not stepping into photography.
Yes.
So if you do that, you're a hobbyist, and that's fine. But if you are starting to earn money, that's a whole new conversation. So I think that your confusion is simply because no one talked about it. No one. And
Yep.
everybody does it, but no one talks about it. So I think this is a conversation that we should definitely start, because
Yeah.
many people are afraid of this. Many people, yeah, that's why I said it. I'm really not usually advertising my fine art, fine art work, but I think it's important for people to know that, like, this is not an income that I rely to,
Right.
but I really love doing fine art. And I realized that if I love doing it, there is no point for me that this work is going to go to my hard drive, and that's it. So
Right.
people can buy it. Why not put it out there? So, yeah, people should take every opportunity, I think. And as I said previously, life is really very short. I think we should definitely grab every great opportunity that we have. Even if we're not so sure that it's great, just try it out.
Yeah.
You know what? There is a saying in my country that I really, really love. People say, um, every miracle lasts 3 days, which means that even if something amazing happens to you today, people will talk about it 3 days and then
Right.
they'll forget. But same goes for the bad things. So if something bad happens to you, they will talk about it 3 days, and then you can start with something new.
Yeah.
And that's,
True. It doesn't have
yeah,
to last. Yeah.
absolutely.
I like that. So the final question before we close is I always ask people, what is their why? So what is the driving reason behind why you are a photographer?
I think it's because I'm really, really curious. And I think that's the reason why I do everything I do, to be honest. I'm really very curious. I just want to know things. I'm genuinely curious. That's it. I want to know what's going to happen if we execute a crazy idea. I want to know what's going to happen if I approach a client that I have never talked to before. I just want to know. And I think for everyone to get into this type of mind state, I think it doesn't has to happen just on its own. Sometimes there are situations that are putting you into this mindset. I've really had my situations. I've always been curious, but I've also been very, um, I wasn't sure. When I was little, I was very curious, but I was afraid that maybe something bad will happen if I try something. Then
Right.
I had my changing experience in 2015, um, when I got hit by a truck. Yeah. And my whole life changed. And I was like, well, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So why don't I live today? And that's my why, to be honest. Um, I don't know if everyone can do it just like that. And if they need a reason, I needed a reason, probably. Sometimes it's very funny because I usually, before this situation, I was always like, well, if tomorrow hits me a truck, this will
Ah!
happen. And then the truck really hits me. And I'm like, well, I should probably rethink what I'm saying,
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. So to be honest with you, I'm very grateful for this experience. I had my physical and mental problems after that,
Sure.
but I'm very, very grateful because it just led me to do things that I was afraid to do before.
Yeah.
And it's just so nice and so good when you're not afraid in a healthy way.
Right, 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 right.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yes, that's such good advice. And I know it's something that I have to force myself to take often, because even though it might seem like I'm constantly veering off into many different things, I often veer into the things I already have a tendency to be good at. And I hold myself back from trying things that I may fail in. And so even if I really want to do them, and so I definitely, that's advice I need to take and heed for myself as well.
3 days, remember.
3 days.
Yeah.
Yes. So, first, to everybody who is here, thank you guys so much for joining us and asking Virginia questions. On, let me see. So I have some things scheduled for July. I will have those up on the website in the events calendar, so you guys can check that out. But also, I will be with Virginia on Monday as well.
Yes. Very
At
important.
Yes, yes, at 10 a.m. So come hang out with us for that. And last time, Virginia, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank
I
you so
love our
much.
conversations. I feel like anytime we talk, it ends up going a really long time.
I'm so sorry it took us so
No,
long.
no, I love it. I think that's the great thing I think about interviews like this and this platform entirely, is we get to have really in-depth conversations and just follow them where they go, rather than
Yeah,
trying to keep everything short and only hit talking points. And we
true.
get, I feel like, so much more wisdom and information than we could get if it was just, okay, that's been 30 minutes, we're done now.
It definitely also depends on your host. So thank you so much for
True.
having me.
True. And
It was
thank you.
lovely. And thanks to everyone who also was giving us some clues where to go in this conversation in the comments. It was very lovely to be with you guys.
Yes, agreed. And if you guys find this content valuable, please like and subscribe. And if you think you know anybody who could learn from Virginia's experience in the advertising and fashion industry, make sure you share this with them so they can benefit from her knowledge as well. Be sure to check out the Fashion Photography Podcast, and go hop on Virginia's Instagram and follow her there, because like, she obviously needs way more than 4,000 followers. So go do that. And all of her links I will include in the description below as well. So make sure you check that out. And until next time,